Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Braverman.
And I'm Ellen Selm.
And welcome to our podcast, Stories from the Earth,
where we explore humankind's relationship and connection with the natural world.
This podcast asks the question, what are the many ways in which we can connect with nature in this disconnected society? And how can storytelling help us? We invite you to journey with us as we explore nature through stories. These are the stories from the earth. And we would like to take a quick moment to invite our listeners to consider supporting us through a humble little donation. If you go to our Patreon page, there are options to donate at $1, $5, or $10. The donations will go towards helping us with future projects, such as launching an herbal educational curriculum we've dubbed the People's Herb School, as well as funding to help to take this show on the road and do some on-site reviews and interviews at herb farms and schools and other interesting places relevant to our podcast.
Today, we welcome Appalachian Trail through hikers and authors Amber and Joshua Niven to discuss their recently published and gorgeous, I might add, book, Discovering the Appalachian Trail. And so as not to assume that all of our listeners know what the Appalachian Trail even is, I will read this tidbit from the intro of the book. The Appalachian Scenic Trail, commonly known as the AT, is the longest hiking-only footpath globally. More than 2,100 miles long, it roams across woodlands, ridgetops, pastures, and culturally rich towns as it travels through 14 states, traverses 8 national forests, and passes through 6 other units of the national park system. Millions of people visit the AT every year. Thousands set out to hike its entire length from the southern terminus in Georgia to the northern terminus in Maine. And with that, we say hello to Amber and Joshua.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you. All right, so besides what the title already divulges, can you give the listeners a summary of what this book is about?
Absolutely. So it is we like to call it a comprehensive, inspired guidebook to the Appalachian Trail. So we take readers through the whole AT from Georgia to Maine, but we also do a lot of intro in the beginning, talking about the culture and the history and backpacking basics. So there's a lot to get into.
It's basically an armchair through hike of the whole AT. And so it's all in sequential order from end to end. And we feature 30 of our favorite hikes, ranging in difficulty, overnights or in and outs for single day hikes. Kind of zooming in on the best parts of the AT and kind of showing you the whole thing. It's got about 14 years of my photography on the Appalachian Trail. I selected from over 25,000 pictures, about 500 that are in here. The backbone of those being my through hike in 2013, but those 500 sequential images show you the trail end to end. We set out to kind of do something that other books on the AT haven't done yet, really showing you all the culture and the people. The AT is known as the People's Trail, and we really try to demonstrate that in the book. We feature a lot of other creatives and people we know who have businesses and do different things that were kind of inspired by their through hikes. We feature them in the book. All the historical figures, all the flora, all the fauna. It is, it's basically an AT Bible.
I thought that was a really nice touch, and also the layout for that reason is so nice. Like how you have you set the little stories kind of apart in their little boxes and little did you know facts in little boxes. It just kind of makes it all visually appealing, especially tying in with all of the photography. And you more or less just answered our next question, which was why that book as opposed to, because there's already other guides out there that are published and so forth. But I was curious too, because I thought I had read in there, it mentioned that Joshua, you have another book published that came out before this one. Was it AT related as well?
Yeah, and it wasn't published. It was more of an art piece. So it was just printed on demand through Blurb. When I did my initial through hike, I was doing a project. It was my thesis coming out of photography school called the Through Project. And this is kind of what led to me meeting Amber and how we got here. And this is where it kind of all started. But I took me and 3 other people on trail. We did crowdfunding right after I graduated, and we through hiked. We carried 15 pounds of camera gear across the AT. I took 15,000 pictures when we were out there, and I made a coffee table book basically. And so it was just a print on demand. It was like 150 images in sequential order also that were not with words and stuff. It was really like a visual account of the trail. And so I used to print that and sell it alongside my artwork and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
This Discovering the Appalachian Trail is like the official publish of the photos with the
Yeah,
story. Awesome.
and the photos are amazing. they're just gorgeous. So I can't imagine how hard it was to pick from all of those.
Impossible.
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow did it, but it was not easy for sure.
Yeah.
I know you just talked about a little bit of your background, but can you tell us a little bit more about your background and, how you both discovered the AT, I guess separately, and then
and how to bring you together.
Together.
Clearly, there's a story there.
Definitely. Yeah. The trail definitely brought us together. So I grew up in Gatlinburg. The Great Smoky Mountains was my back park and or my backyard. And so I grew up hiking along with my dad and mom and family. But my dad wanted to hike the AT since he was 13 years old. And at some point I kind of jumped on his dream, and he really inspired me to try long distance backpacking. We were more of day hiking people. And so in 2012 or something, I decided I was going to go with him, and we spent the next couple of years preparing. And then my brother, who was younger, decided he wanted to go too. So we had to wait till he finished high school along with my cousin. And that's how kind of we built the dream. And we set out in 2014 to hike, and attempted the through hike and had to get off in Virginia, unfortunately. And Josh was before me. His hike was in 2013. I'll let you.
Yeah, so I heard about the AT when I was young from my grandfather. He was talking about Bill Irwin, the hiker who was blind, who did it. And so it always fascinated me when I was like 8 years old, and it was kind of always in the back of my brain. And then when I was a teenager, one of my best friends started going out on trail, and he invited us out there. And then I spent all of my summers as a late teen and early 20s doing giant section hikes on the AT. And that kind of inspired the project. And then in 2013, we did our project. And the following year, I built a makeshift gallery trailer, and I would travel up to Trail Days, which is the annual kind of get together anniversary for past through hikers, and current through hikers, a big AT festival. And so I would go there and set up and sell my artwork that I printed and my book and all of that. And that's when actually Amber on her 2014 hike was at Trail Days and came through my booth where I was selling the artwork. And that's when we originally met. Unfortunately, I don't remember that. She remembers it. But the following year in 2015, right? Yeah, in 2015, I was there again selling my artwork. And Amber had an artist collective called the Wander Trees and a candle company. And she was selling other artists' goods and her candles, and was set up at Trail Days. And she got set up across from me. And so we were actually, where you're set up selling your stuff, you're actually on the Appalachian Trail in the park in Damascus. And so we met right there on the AT, and the rest is kind of history there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
just the fate of where your tables were assigned. That's awesome.
Exactly.
So Amber, you said that you had stopped in Virginia. Were you headed south to north or north to south to north? So you made it about what, halfway-ish? Or?
I was heading north to south. So we started in Maine and I was heading down. So it was like 3/4 of the trail.
Have you gone back to do the other parts since?
Yeah, slowly been like chipping away at the rest of it.
Awesome.
Yeah. But now with 2 littles, it's kind of way more difficult to knock off big miles, but slowly, yeah.
What is the thing you both love most about hiking the AT?
That's a great question.
I mean, mine's easy. It's always kind of been the same thing. It's this kind of independence, like kind of responsible for yourself alone. Not that you're actually alone, but this whole feeling of, freedom that you get when you're out there. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of an American dream kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? It's, we have this amazing trail that's unlike any other trail in the world, and it's here, and it kind of represents autonomy. I started going out there as a young adult, my late teens, and I've kind of found myself out there and found my independence and my strength and all of those kind of things. And so for me, it really is just I feel like I'm free whenever I'm out. When I actually have time to go on an overnight and actually go out there, that's my favorite thing. It's just kind of being autonomous in the woods and being able to do what you want to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. The AT, there's just the ability to reinvent yourself when you get out there, especially if you're trying to take on a through hike, which is, when you hike the entire thing or go out there for a long period of time, you claim a trail name, and you can be yourself fully, and it's such a welcoming environment. I think that's the thing that comes to my mind when my favorite thing about the AT is just the people and the culture and this kind of richness, this closeness, this bond that you experience while you're out there. Of course, connecting with nature and feeling that sense of freedom and that deep connection with the natural world. But the people are just right up there, up top for me.
And people don't know that. There's a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know, if you just hear about the AT, and that's kind of what we wanted to express in the book, like, especially if you're through hiking, like, you don't go out there, you're not alone, really. I mean, yeah, you could have a day where you're kind of alone. But you're going to see people at the shelters. You have people around you that are your trail family, kind of, and you're kind of in the same bubble the whole way if you're through hiking. It's a little different if you're doing section hiking, especially if you're out of season and that kind of thing. But you really encounter a lot of people, you know, in any part of the AT. You know, when you're through hiking, you get up north into Maine and stuff, there's been so much fall off of the people who started to who's actually finishing. And so you do end up in some of those wildernesses up there pretty much alone for a good bit of it. But man, I mean, there's people just don't realize how much the people and the communities around the AT are kind of a part of what you're experiencing, even just in a short section hike.
And then if you are in those sections where you're alone, there are trail logs. So at every shelter, there's a journal, and you get to read, you know, who's come through and how was their day and what are they thinking. And that's something unique, I think, of the AT. I'm not sure if other long trails have trail logs, but
I wonder, are those cataloged somewhere? Like, because I mean, it's been going on for years, obviously. So when one book gets filled up, who goes and collects it, and is it archived, or do you know?
That's no situation. I think it depends on, you know, the
trail clubs, I'm sure, collect them, whoever is maintaining that shelter.
But there's so many shelters, so there's no telling that there's every book ever, you know, in any of these shelters put away. But
I'd like to think there is.
Yeah, I'd like to think so too. But we also, at the midway point in Harper's Ferry, they have kind of an official log of sorts where they actually take your picture and they document you. And then you also sign the book there. So that's like the one spot where I can think of that's like where it's fully official. Well, then also at the start and at the finish. So Springer Mountain or at Mount Katahdin and Baxter State Park, you've got kind of logs there where they record your stuff for their.
It's for safety purposes.
Yeah.
So what is the most challenging thing about the AT, or one of the most challenging things?
I bet our answer is the same.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think I thought it was a given, but for me, I think it's the mental game of again, speaking to like through hiking or some like really long distance section hiking. But just if you're going out there to attempt a through hike, the mental game is so hard and was very like unexpected for myself, and I know other hikers too, because you just kind of like get into the groove, and then the groove is just kind of boring after a while, or you know, all your stuff comes up, you know, if you're trying to run away from something, and a lot of people go to the trail to heal or to find themselves, and if it's just, you know, you and your feet hitting the trail, all of those, the mental chatter can come up. So for me, that was the most challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, if they're actually through hiking, you know, I mean, the AT is so much more than through hiking. So when I think what's the hardest thing in the AT, I mean, I feel like the hardest thing is leaving whenever it's not a through hike, and then during a through hike, it's mental and it's boredom. I mean, there's a lot of boring miles that you do when you're covering such an expanse, especially when you get into the Green Tunnel, when you're headed north and you get out of Virginia and it's the dead middle of summer and you walk for 300, 400 miles and basically a green tunnel. Mental strategies, you know, really start coming into play. And, you know, on your through hike, you're kind of worried about what's at home and what's to come after trail, and, you know, there's money and all that stuff. So kind of just depends on what we're talking about. With short hikes, it's just like leaving, probably.
Yeah, overcoming your own fears.
Piggybacking kind of on that same theme, what are some life lessons that you say that you've learned from the trail?
So much. I feel like so much. I've taken so much from the trail and I've carried with me through life. I think a big one is the joy and simplicity. You know, you're out there with just your backpack and just the things that you need. You're getting water from the streams, like you're making a fire and cooking over the fire. Just that, the simplicity of life and just the resilience that you gain from being out there and overcoming and doing hard things, hiking in the rain or facing bears or whatever it is. And see, I think those are the main things I took from it. I hiked with my family. I hiked with 4 members of my family. So it just taking that, the importance of spending quality time with like loved ones is,
Yeah.
valuable.
For me, it goes really deep. I mean, I learned everything out there over the years. I mean, in my adolescence, just learning confidence and strength and becoming a kind of, quote unquote, becoming a man, and kind of things that I had a kind of a chaotic childhood. I was kind of lost in my later teens, and in a bad way. And alongside my commitment to skateboarding, my hiking, these are the two things that are kind of the pillars of my existence, and how I've been able to meet Amber and have a family, and make a life for us. I kind of figured all of this out on trail. I found all of my strengths and all of my hard ability, confidence, and understanding what I can accomplish and all that stuff. I mean, and even with my through hike with the people I did it with, just interpersonal stuff, and like working with other people. I had kind of a dramatic through hike, and so I had a lot of personal things with the people that I was with, and it was a lot. I mean, I could talk about it for days. There's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers to my experience on the Appalachian Trail.
I know there's the one story in the book about the couple buddies that got struck by lightning, and you had a sense that it wasn't good and had hightailed it out of there, and they unfortunately, luckily they made it out of it okay. But holy cow, what a thing to happen. I mean, it was kind of a good thing probably to include something like that in the book, just so people can have some reality checks of that it's not just a stroll through a park necessarily, but I guess if that alludes to some of the personality challenges you encountered.
Well, that was from a section hike when we were younger, so before the stress hit of adulthood, trying to accomplish things. But all of my stories that are in the book that I talk about are all about what not to do on the Appalachian Trail. And so it's kind of a common theme with any of this stuff. I guess maybe just naturally the things that stick out in my brain from, all of my thousands of miles out there and years doing it are all those experiences where things got a little hairy. And so all my stories are telling people what not to do, and they're kind of humorous, I guess, in some way. That one was interesting. That was a scary day. We shouldn't have been trekking out onto an open ridge line with no trees in a lightning storm. So that kind of sums that one up.
You mentioned there's just a lot of time where you're just walking, and our kind of really, really busy, normal everyday lives. We don't have a lot of time for a lot of nothing. So it makes sense that it would give you time to think about things that you haven't been able to think about and to process them. And I think that's why stuff comes up, and also like why that's really great. Like, we just need more of that time in our daily lives, but we don't have it. And
yeah, you can get that out there for sure. I mean, I had to learn how to kind of downshift my personality, especially on my through hike. Just being such like a adrenaline junkie and high energy person, there's so much therapy for like learning how to be calm and wait. You're doing a lot of sitting on the roadsides waiting for things, and you're always and then you're also waiting to get out and be done to start your life, and you're contemplating everything about your life the whole time. And so I didn't really possess those like kind of mental skill sets until I through hiked, really, because I don't slow down, and it gave me, even though I was moving fast, it kind of was a slowdown,
The challenge definitely more so probably, and I don't know, it's probably been a challenge for humanity since humanity's existed, but I feel like it's probably more of a challenge in our century to learn how to be alone with yourself. I guess that's where you were talking about, Amber, the mental aspect of like people probably quit just because they feel like they're driving themselves crazy, like it's hard.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to what Josh said earlier, you start thinking about like, what am I doing? Like, you're out here for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and you start wondering like, should I be doing something else? Like, is this productive? The way that like our society is now, that kind of crept into my mind of like, oh wow, like, am I having too much fun? Like, because it is a luxury to be out there for so long. And especially like, I was so grateful that I was able to like save up enough funds to be able to have a little bit more, freedom, like in towns and stuff. So it gets to a point where, your mind is constantly being like, you should be going back to work now. This is enough.
A good point. Like, just I guess advice for people who are thinking about doing something like this. I mean, for the most part, the people you get on trail are within those transitions in life. Like the only reason I was able to pull it off is because of the fact I was leaving college and I hadn't started everything. You know what I mean? And then like you have all these people who are in those kind of early life transitions who find that moment to be able to go and spend 6 to 7 months on trail and do it. Or you have these people who are later in life and, now they're not focused on their career and now they have that space where they're able to do it. Doing it in the middle and being out there is super hard. Like, especially obviously if you have a kid or anything or career, it's next to impossible in kind of that middle zone to do it. There are people doing it, but they're super fortunate people. You know what I mean? So.
Well, you can always just do a section though as well. And that's really great because for me, like, I think it would be really difficult to do a through hike. I have some health issues, but I could definitely do like an hour or so. And I was really lucky in camp one year. They were like, you're going hiking. And I'm like, okay, I've never been backpacking or anything. And that was my first experience. And we went for a whole week and it was just like, whoa, it was quite an experience. I learned how to like be aware of where my feet were and all that stuff. Cause you're just like, you have to move a little differently. And my backpack was broken and I didn't know about it. So I was like, yeah, because the weight's supposed to sit on your hips.
Yeah.
That was broken. So everything was on my shoulders and they didn't catch that. And I didn't know because I was like,
you're dragging.
So green, and that's why I was in the back with one of the counselors were like, we're a little worried about you. And I'm like, I discovered that. And then it was too late. It was broken. So
you're carrying a sack of potatoes on your back.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't know that. Is that what it was supposed to be? But it was quite an experience. And we were supposed to do like a solo at the end, like one night or 2 nights. It was that was it. Like they just put us all sort of in our own little spot.
Wow.
Like
a vision.
Yeah.
Huh?
Like a vision quest?
Not exactly, but we were supposed to be alone and we all failed.
Oh.
Was this in North Carolina?
Yeah.
What camp was it?
Eagle's Nest.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
Have you heard of Eagle's Nest?
I've heard of that one, but I can't remember. Is that the one in the Piedmont, like down near Lake Wiley? Am I crazy or was it in the mountains?
I think it's in the mountains.
Hiking in the mountains, but yeah.
Yeah. We had to drive. It was the camp was fantastic.
Cool.
The camp was amazing, and I was very fortunate to be able to go.
We're camp people, so these are the questions we ask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, fantastic. Food, amazing. Although this was like many years ago, but I would definitely recommend that camp to anyone. It was I went 2 years and it was both an amazing experience. And I'm very just fortunate that my brother and I were able to go. When you were talking about the mental and being alone, I had previously really found that difficult. Now I find it easier that I'm older, but and so when we did the solo, it was really hard.
Something I've noticed too about being alone is like when you're young and you're at camp. I did the camp thing, had some crazy outdoor experiences, and I had a hard time being alone as a youth also. But I think it has a lot to do with now it's so easy because it's like we have work to do. You know what I mean? It's like when you finally have that time that you're alone, especially when you're forced to be alone or you have these extended periods of alone time, if you're in the woods for a day or two or whatever, like there's work to be done because we all have our stuff. You know what I mean? When you're a kid, when you're in your adolescence and stuff, it's like you just want that stimulation and it's like there's no work to be done. You know what I mean? Maybe for some people who are super, in tune and introverted, maybe they already are working on stuff at a young age. But now I find any alone time is just like, work time, I guess.
Oh, can you guys hear my cat?
Yeah,
meowing like a crazy man. He's okay. Just a little. Okay. Well, he's wanting food early.
It happens.
He gets special food at certain times, and sometimes he can't. He's like, I want more food now. I want it. Anyway, yes, he's not deprived, but
he's acting like it.
He just acts like it. Yeah. What is your best advice for newbies setting out on the trail? Someone who's completely new.
Someone that's new to hiking, or someone that's new to through hiking, or
I guess both. Maybe both.
Doing an overnight trek. Somebody.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's one night or, 100 nights.
Yeah. I mean, I think equipment is important, just like the basics, making sure you have what you need. And I always recommend just going to like a local outfitters, and a lot of times they can do pack shakedowns where you can lay out. They'll go through your pack. You can tell them like, hey, this is where I want to go. This is what I have. Like, what do I need? What I don't need. So that's always nice and available at most outfitters, I would think, especially along the AT. Yeah, and making sure, just planning like logistically, making sure you have like a shuttle arranged, or if someone's going to pick you up, like the car situation, going to the Forest Service websites, making sure there's no trail closure. So like those kinds of things. And then I guess speaking on like the through hiking side, I always like to recommend that people know that their intention of like why they're going out there. That would help me if I had more of a clear goal of like, what am I trying to accomplish with this? Even if it's just like having fun or connecting with nature, and just to really kind of get into up-level your experience in like a deeper way. I don't know, those are kind of my key things.
Yeah, I mean, I have most of my stuff is technical.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of 3 go-tos in this is be prepared, unless you're going for a short trip and you know exactly what the weather is, prepared to be wet while you're hiking, period. People think when they're going out, they need to have these ginormous logging boots on and be walking around with super waterproof shoes. If it's not dead middle of winter, it's quite the opposite. You want to have the most breathable shoes that can take on any water, because those shoes will dry overnight, the others will not. And also, big heavy boots drag you down. The structure, the way your ankles work and your feet, people think that having laces all the way up to your, halfway up your shin is going to help you not roll your ankles. It's actually about the base of the shoe itself and the width of the heel, not kind of overdoing it in the feet world is important, and prepared to be wet when you're hiking. But going along with that is your sleeping bag and your clothes, what I call your comforts, what you're going to have at the end of the day, always in the middle of your pack. Maybe kind of obvious, but as long as you're prepared to be wet while you're moving, and you have all of those things in the dead middle of your pack, you're going to be okay, like no matter what. And then the third thing for me is paying attention to what other people are doing. Everybody's different. I have to focus on my feet 100% of the time when I'm in the woods, because I have feet problems. I know people who can throw on a pair of Nike Dunks and never look at their feet once, and carry 50 pounds and never even think about it. And especially when it comes to staying dry while you're hiking, even though you're going to be wet, just other people's techniques, small umbrellas, things of this nature, all these little details. It's all about paying attention to what other people are doing, because that's how you're going to learn when you're around people, especially if you're starting a through hike. Look to the people who seem to be focusing on things you're focusing on, and paying attention, because it all seems kind of simple, but there's just so many tricks of the trade and so many little details that really can make the difference for whether or not you're comfortable when you're in the wilderness.
And it's nice to not have to like feel like you're going out and reinventing any wheels.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, a lot has been figured out.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll also add to let someone know where you're going, someone responsible, and maybe brush up on leave no trace principles. You can go to leavenotrace.org, I think, and we have them in our book too. It's just outdoor ethics of actually how to recreate responsibly, what to do with your waste and good stuff like that.
Speaking from your experience, would you recommend that people would get more of a full AT experience by through hiking the entire thing, or dividing it into segments and knocking it out over a longer period of time? Is there what would you say the reasoning or benefit to one over another could be?
So I would say it definitely depends on the person. There's trade-offs to both. If you get the call to want to section hike the AT, or to through hike the AT, then I don't think you're going to be satisfied with section hiking it, but you can absolutely get a full experience section hiking it too, because you're going to go through all of the same places. You're going to see the people. You're going to stay at the shelters. And I know that's kind of like not really an answer, but
well, I'll piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've done both extensively. I do 2 to 4 weeks every summer, between the ages of 19 and like 24 or 23 or something. I think with a through hike, you have to miss a lot of stuff when you through hike because you have a window. You have to get to Mount Katahdin before October 15th. They close it because snow starts coming on Katahdin. And so, if you're not going fast enough and you start in early March or the end of February, if you do it the end of February, it's too cold. I was waist deep in the Smokies in snow 3 weeks into my hike or 2 weeks into my hike or whatever it was. You got pretty major winter to start with, and then you're ending with it winter kind of coming. And so you do have a window and you got to miss a lot and make a lot of decisions. And there's a lot of just hiking through things fast because you got to stay on schedule. Experiencing it in that way is great. But it almost, in my opinion, you can kind of experience more doing large sections because you can kind of get the best of both worlds. You can be slower and kind of take it in more. You got people who go out there you'll be on trail with who are doing it in 5 months or less, who are basically carrying 23 pounds and they're running the whole time. They're not seeing anything. You know what I'm saying? They're hiking 25 plus miles a day or whatever, 20 to 28 miles or whatever it is that those high level hikers are doing that are lightweight. And I mean, they're missing a lot. They're seeing a lot, but they're missing a lot. And you're not really, smelling the roses as you're going in that way. I think 2 to 3 weeks in the middle of the summer is like the ideal get the experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll add too that the founder, the visionary of the Appalachian Trail, Benton MacKay, never intended for people to hike it from end to end, and it would always annoy him when he would hear about people like counting miles or making it about a competition. He actually didn't even like the word hike. He liked the word walk. Speaking of the full AT experience in that sense, then yeah, going out for a walk on the AT would be his recommendation.
Speaking of Benton MacKay, I know that there's things like the Trail Days Festival you were talking about and Good Samaritans you meet along the way, aka the trail angels you speak about in the book, the kinds of things that help the hiker out along the way. But did you notice, is there much evidence of Mackay's original vision along the trail in terms of like the camps he mentions? Like, I just thought, like, what an awesome idea that is, that one could just be strolling along and come across, encampments in the forest dedicated to like nature schools or farming. Like, is there anybody doing any of that along the trail?
I think there's a couple hostels that kind of have their own little homesteady thing. There was one that I didn't stay at that I just heard of. But no, not really to his full vision. I stayed at like a lady's house in Maine who was like farming. And I remember thinking like, oh, this could be kind of what Benton was talking about, being able to like get off trail. And she was just one lady at her, that would welcome through hikers. But she had this organic farm and chickens running everywhere. And that was my kind of first experience to like someone homesteading. And so I could see how that could kind of like be what he was wanting to introduce people to. When I read about his like original vision, I read into it more of like a where you could go
more intentional.
Yeah, like more of like a summer campy type thing. But I think that is starting to happen organically, maybe not intentionally. But I know that APC is very is focusing more on seeing his original vision come to life.
First time I had gone to, my family's gone to Damascus a few times to like ride the Virginia Creeper Trail. And one of the times we were there, we actually happened to just be there during trail days. So that was fun.
A little chaotic.
Yeah, we're like, wait, this is a little town. Where did all these people come from? Yeah. I remember even just riding on the Creeper Trail, there's a section of it where it's coming back down into the town where you start to get into where you can see some people's homes, like just off the trail. And it's like, oh, how cool is that this is like your backyard kind of thing. And I started to just envision like this whole, like, wouldn't it be great if we could just all live in little villages like this again, where you just had to go up a little dirt path to the community farm and this and that. So it's like, it's communal, but we're everybody has their space, but they're also doing things together and all this. And I don't know, just very much more like, I don't know, medieval or Robin Hood-esque times. And so when I had read that in your book, Mackay's idea to have like as you would be going along the trail, you would come into these encampments where there was things going on. Like if that was like somewhat consistent through the whole thing, which it sounds like might've been his original vision, like that would just be so cool.
Well, it's happening in some towns like Hot Springs where we live. we're right here in between Hot Springs and Marshall. They're both equidistant from us out here in the woods. That's a good example of kind of where that's taking place on some level. He had a vision about connecting all these towns also, as this being like a corridor to connect all these places. And in that way, it's happening a lot pretty naturally. You do get that experience in a handful of places throughout the trail. That's ATC's focus right now, is actually doing that. They're going into some of these trail towns like Damascus, and they're putting in their community center. And then they just put a brand new community center or headquarters, I guess you call it, in Damascus. And so they're trying to see through his vision on that front a little bit. You got a lot of towns along the AT, but only so many of them are like on the AT.
Right.
And so they're working towards that right now. I think that's what their mission statement is at the moment.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's cool that even though maybe some of the vision hasn't been completely realized yet, that a lot of it had been, even though it took a long time, but he had such an idea and it actually came into reality. And now we have this amazing thing, which I just grew up taking it for granted, I was like, oh yeah, I know this trail is the AD, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And you grew up like 30 miles from it. So.
Yeah. And then we have the Blue Ridge Parkway where you just hop on the parkway and there's trails off of it. So it's just something that's always sort of been there. Although like my family's from New York, so a small part of my life I was in the city. I always think that's just amazing when someone has an idea and they can take it through this process of actually making it happen. And
the guidebook that we use is called the AWOL guidebook. It does a really great job of, it has all of your little points, where you get your water and whatnot. But then every so often, every couple of pages, it will be a map of the trail town, and then it will list like post office and like services that you need. But some of them have like trail angels that will come and pick you up, and you can come stay with them. So I feel like that's kind of a cool like way to see that vision too.
So besides what seems obvious, like shelter and a sleeping bag, what are your most important or favorite pieces of gear that you can't do without on the trail?
Number one for me forever is my small AM/FM radio, crank radio, that has the NOAA on it for weather. It's a nostalgic piece of my history on the trail. We always hiked with crank radios when I was younger. It's cool to be able to just tune into whatever's out there and have that at night when you're sitting by the campfire. Obviously spend time listening to nature and watching the stars and everything. But I love those crank radios. They always have a flashlight on them. They're solar charged. They're small. You can just sit there and just wind it while you're sitting by the fire. And that's actually how I discovered 88.7 and kind of how I ended up in this region living here, is when we were younger, going out on trail, and we'd be sitting around the fire drinking whiskey and pull out the crank radio, and you turn on 88.7 in the middle of the night and it'd be some crazy show. They used to be a little bit more out there, I think, with their late night shows and whatnot. But that was like a memory I always held on to and always kind of been connected to that radio station, which I love so much. Celtic Winds on Sunday morning. We live 30 minutes from a grocery store on the side of a mountain. We're basically on the AT out here. And when I'm out here doing yard work or working on the house or doing anything, pulling that radio, even at home, I use that radio constantly when I'm in the woods, just listening to 88.7 or whatever. So kind of not a hiking thing, but kind of it's that everybody's got that thing, your book, right? A lot of people, carry a book, have that one thing that kind of gives you
luxury item.
The luxury item. And then second to that is my lightweight hiking umbrella for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. They make these really small, awesome hiking umbrellas. Gossamer Gear makes
much better if a storm just springs upon you than having to like wrestle on your rain gear.
Yeah, and after so long, the rain gear doesn't work.
Yeah, that's why like rain gear doesn't work. Okay, like if you're actually hiking in the woods, rain gear is going to do nothing for you but make you sweaty, and then you're wet anyways. Yeah. At least for me, I'm always carrying weight and moving fast. Even if I'm not, I'm going to be sweating. So I like the umbrella because you can basically just be in the summer months, like be in your t-shirt that's water wicking in your shorts, and then at least if you have the umbrella above you, it's relieving that sensation of cold water hitting you constantly. And so then you can really still get a lot of miles done. Your feet are soaked, everything's soaked, but that's cool because you got your comfort clothes in the middle of your pack with your pack cover on, and they're going to be perfectly dry whenever you get to where you're going. And if you need a snack, you can turn your pack around and squat down with your umbrella above you, operate the top of your pack where your brain's at, and stay relatively comfortable. So that's kind of my technical gear piece that I think is always worth having.
Yeah. my luxury item is a journal. I can't go anywhere without my journal. And I guess second to that would be I use the Spot like GPS tracker just to get like a little peace of mind. Now, especially having kids, it feels good to have that.
Looking back at your experiences, is there anything that you would do differently now? Any kind of sort of you live and you learn moment that's stands out?
There's no time for all that.
Yeah, really. That's another one we could go, oh gosh, so far into. I know yours, because we talk about it a lot.
Well, that'll make this quicker and easier. You tell them.
The planning out food and doing food better. If we're talking about through hiking, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, we'll put it in that context. Maybe that'll help rein in the answer.
Please, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's kind of would be mine too. Food would definitely be, planning out food better, because I relied on, although now that I'm saying this, I probably would. I relied on stopping into these little towns and doing the rice sides and like all the stuff that was full of sodium and sugar and Snickers and Pop-Tarts and like all of this bad food. So I'd probably plan out my food better and do more mail drops maybe, and take better notes, especially after writing this book and realizing like, I wish I had better notes to look back on as far as what I'm seeing, rather than just like I'm feeling tired and sore.
Everything I did wrong on trail during my through hike is what's led me to be who I am now.
Yeah.
I probably brought an extra person I didn't need to bring with me on my through hike. That was a part of the project that caused me. I didn't enjoy a lot of my through hike because we were running out of money. We didn't crowdfund enough money. We thought we had enough money. We didn't have enough money. Internal conflict with my rider. Many things that caused my hike to be incredibly stressful, with the looming financial aid kicking in, with me thinking this was a project that was going to kind of push me in the direction I needed to go, which it did. At the end of the day, there was a lot of struggle after my hike. I survived the last 2 months of my through hike on $50 a week that my stepdad was sending me. And so I had to split from my guys and give up all my food because I didn't want to be around one of my people anymore towards the end of my hike. But this led to me meeting one of my best friends and the godfather of our daughter as a result of that. In these conflicts taught me how to be a business owner and how to deal with people and all these different things. And so my story and my regrets are like crazy layered, intertwined. But again, it's like, I can't really regret any of it. Although I would have done a lot of it differently if I were to do it now for sure. But it's, part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So besides working on your book, what all have you been up to since you hiked the AT? Sort of, what do you do besides hiking?
Yeah.
Having kids is what we've been up to. Really. Having kids, doing the mom thing, writing, yoga, getting our homestead up and running.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch. I have a local business to Western North Carolina. I'm a fine art reproductionist. Asheville Fine Art Printing is my company that we run here from the homestead. I photograph people's artwork, reproduce them on canvas, your watercolor prints, all your G-clays. I run a sticker machine, and so I service a huge portion of our artists here in Western North Carolina for all of their reselling artwork needs. And so we have that, and then I'm a member of a nonprofit in Asheville, the Asheville Skate Foundation. We have a community-built skate park in the River Arts District called the Foundation, Foundy. And so I do a lot with the community with crowdfunding, raising money for building ramps. And then our nonprofit is responsible for coordinating the renovation that just took place at the Food Lion Skate Park downtown. We got a $200,000 grant from the city to redo that part. Well, not redo it, but add to it, fix it up. They actually got us another $30,000 for a mural project where the whole thing got painted by local artists.
Wow.
So when our mission statement is just to bring these safe spaces for children to have a positive outlet. And we're hoping to have skate parks in small form and large form built into some of our less fortunate parts of Western North Carolina and places that need it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Me and two of my friends have built our entire new home that we've been working on. So we got a lot going on, actually. I think about it a little bit.
What are things that help you stay feeling grounded and connected to the natural world during your daily life? And conversely, what helps you reconnect into quote unquote normal life after you're coming off the trail?
Well, daily life, my kids do a really good job at that. You have to be in the present moment. Outside time is fun because they're looking at things with these little eyes of wonder. So they always stop me. The other day we saw a Luna moth, and that was like the whole day talking to the Luna moth and like learning about the Luna moth and learning about the bees. And so like I feel like I'm hyper focused on the living natural world. And so that definitely helps me stay grounded. And then as far as what about you? How do you stay grounded daily?
I mean, I've spent the last 5 years of my life trying to carve our mountain out for our homestead. Our property goes from like 2,000 feet to 3,000 feet. And so it's a steep mountain with a lot going on and a lot of driveway and a lot of things going into trying to get us established here to be able to live comfortably. And so I spend so much time on our outside doing that stuff. And we're dealing with a bear right now, and we're always dealing with raccoons and all the things that come with living out here. And so I'm naturally just grounded through all of that and building our house. I mean, it's a full commitment living 30 minutes from the grocery store and being in this place we're at. And so I'm constantly I just naturally brought into it all the time, dealing with our stuff here. I work in my studio here, and then 3 times a week, Amber and I fly into town I have a satellite location in Chief Joe's Art Stuff where I meet my clients for the printing company. And so it's this constant like in and out kind of deal. And so we're kind of immersed here, and then I go into reality and deal with the clients, drop off all the artwork, and then back up the mountain. So that's kind of the way we do it.
What was the second part of the question?
Oh, how do you reorient back into that sort of thing once you're coming off the trail? Like back into the grind. So
white knuckle it. Pretty much.
Yeah. I don't even. Yeah, acclimating to real life is a challenge. I think people and lots of good day hikes, and I don't even know how to answer that question. But just to put one foot in front of the other.
Float into it.
Yeah. That's a good question to ponder.
One day you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I've reintegrated now.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. I remember like speaking about like the through hike, like driving in the car was really weird. Like the ride, like from the trail to the home, I was like, whoa, we're moving so fast. And I'm like looking at the mountain range and being like, God, that would take us days. And it's a weird thing from being out in the woods for so long and then coming back home. It's almost kind of sad because now when I'm thinking about like our weekend adventures we take out, and that you just click right back in so fast, and it's like, oh, here we go. We're like switching gears. It is just like switching gears of a bicycle almost.
We're talking hiking, like doing any trips that are over 3 or 4 nights. Your acclimation usually involves food. So,
yeah, lots of eating.
Yeah. You kind of acclimate pretty quickly because you're kind of just
dreaming of what your meal will be when you re-enter the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was one part in the book where the guy had his like what he was eating. Oh my gosh. Do you guys I'm sure you remember that part. Oh, that was fun.
One of someone's stories?
Yeah, it was someone's story, and it was like it takes us a lot of calories to do the hike. So even though like it seems like a lot of like it was like peanut butter and oh my gosh, I wish I had like
we have a bunch of stories in there. I'm trying to pick apart.
I'm trying to think of it.
A lot of peanut butter too. There's a picture of my brother with peanut butter and fluff. That was
maybe that was it. It's just like this is a trail meal, and it seemed like kind of if you were eating it not hiking, it would be really, really strange. But like you need all these calories to do the hike.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do what you have to get the calories in.
Yeah, it's impossible to keep up with the calories when you're in a full-blown through hike. Nearly impossible.
Yeah, that's why I was like second guessing my mail drop. Looking back, I'm like, oh, I probably would just be eating everything inside anyway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tendinitis from people not eating enough meat, and you got to really be on point. Just depending on how you're hiking, some people, it just depends on how fast you do it, how much weight you're carrying, and your body and all these details. And like, a lot of people get taken off the trail for tendonitis. And I'm under the impression, just from learning over the years, that has a lot to do with protein intake and working hard.
Everybody's going to carb heavy with the pasta side dishes. And
when we go into town for resupply, that first night back on trail, we're carrying pork tenderloins, we're carrying cheese, we're carrying things that we'll consume in the first 24 hours. That we know that weight will disappear quick, but we can have that, heavy protein intake meal that, not everybody's a protein eaters, but, for someone like myself, when you're exerting that much effort and carrying as much weight as we were, which was too much weight compared to the average through hiker.
Because of all the camera equipment.
Yeah. And I prefer to carry everything I'll need, opposed to being light, but I've always had a camera with me, so I'm always carrying heavy. It just is what it is. One detail for that is rehydrating things like summer sausages and like, what do you call it? Like salamis, carrying whole salamis, you can get time out of that, and you can slice those up and cook them in the pan before you cook your ramen, and kind of, turn it into something that's kind of desirable that won't rot if you need meat. But it's really hard to have meat and stuff multiple days. Those dehydrated meals are full of, the expensive ones even are so full of so much sodium, and they taste horrible. And like,
that's where trail mix comes in handy.
Yeah, trail mix. I mean, I did a lot of cooking ramen with, just bunches of nuts in it and stuff, and doing that kind of thing, and, slicing up some salami in it. Yeah.
Has someone ever made like a trail cookbook?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trail foodies.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking that's got to be a thing.
Yeah, but hardly does any of that, for the most part, kind of apply to somebody through hiking. Usually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very limited with, you gotta be packable and lightweight. Yeah. Well, you don't have to be, but you want to be.
Basically, most through hiking recipes are the 1,000 different ways to cook ramen, really. or mashed
use
potatoes,
a tortilla.
Or 1,000 ways to use a tortilla shell.
Yeah. I've thought it for a while that it's such a shame that so many of the instant meal, camper friendly, like they're aimed towards campers, meals are, like you said, they're so salty or like overdone in one flavor note, even though you read it and there's like tons of ingredients and you think, oh great, this is gonna be a whole meal, and then it'll only taste like cumin or something like that. It's just like, how is it that after all this time people have not gotten this right? Oh gosh, it would make everybody's lives a lot easier.
I will say, just because it hit me, one thing though that you can find, I think even Nancy East, who's a great resource for, she's a guide in the Smoky Mountains, and she's kind of notorious first responder, notorious author of hiking. And I'm pretty sure she provides some of this information on her website. But a lot of people do have tons of meals and recipes where you're dehydrating stuff. And so that is the one area and space where there are cookbooks for dehydrating things, and you can go so extensive with dehydrating meals. I'm just not a fan of dehydrated food in general. So even if it's the best dehydrated meal in the world, it doesn't necessarily meet my needs 100% unless it's like a super gnarly rice dish that's got everything in it, But there's a million resources out there for dehydrating. The sky's the limit on how awesome your food could be if you're dehydrating it yourself, So there's that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It reminds me, going back to some of our other questions about your favorite thing and life lessons, hiking, backpacking specifically, really requires you to be very mindful. And Jennifer, you were kind of speaking about that with the hip belts and feeling your body, and it just, you're constantly checking in with yourself and making sure, do I have enough water? And Josh is talking about like the diet and how that affects your body. And so, I think that is definitely one of my favorite things about backpacking and how it connects you with yourself too.
Yeah.
Like sort of learning how to do that in a way that I know our day-to-day daily life doesn't sort of allow us to do that, but it's very important. Yeah, that's cool.
I made a little side note here to myself that I had to laugh at your little did you know tip on page 169, where you mentioned that the total elevation gain across the entire Appalachian Trail hike is the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest 16 times. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if you should have put that in that book. It's not a selling point. It kind of makes it sound way more exhausting. I mean, I could see why it would also make some people be like, whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's
a lot of people like that.
competition factor, but like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather not want to stand.
It's a lot of up.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
It's a lot of up.
A lot of up, a lot of down.
Not
Hard on the joints.
Yep. And for me, in my opinion on the trail, is that the hardest hiking you do on the Appalachian Trail is in the southern states. As soon as you hit Georgia, you're getting beat up. In North Carolina, Tennessee, is some of the hardest hiking because we have just the gnarliest up and down scenario. Up north, things start mellowing out, and although you'll kind of climb bigger mountains, you're kind of hiking to that mountain, then climbing it. Opposed to what you do a lot in the south is just go up and down, up and down, up and down, and you can hit, like, I don't know what the actual number is, but you can do like 7-10 summits in a day or something weird in the south in some places. Or I don't know if that, don't quote me on that number, but it's like more summits than you'd expect in a day's worth of hiking.
You think, is that why people tend to start south? And because I would think, like, well, if it sounds like if you're fighting time and the snows, it makes sense to start north and go south. But based on what you just said, it almost like, oh, that's why you would want to start south and go north. When you have more energy, start with the up downs.
Well, honestly, that's actually to our detriment, I think, in the trend, because you would actually warm up to hiking better starting in the north. The fall off rate in Georgia to North Carolina is insane with how many people actually start within a week or off trail, because you just get it handed to you immediately. But I mean, most people, I think the trend to go from the south to the north just has a lot to do with like how vast up north is and how insane Katahdin is. Springer Mountain ain't that great. It's kind of just a hill in the woods. But there's Amicalola Falls, and there's a sweet waterfall system, and these stairs you got to hike, and there's cool stuff, and there's all that. But I think that
nothing beats Katahdin.
Nothing beats Katahdin.
The granddaddy of.
So it's like, and nothing beats New Hampshire, in Maine, in Vermont, and it's like if you start in the south, then like you kind of get to hike to that gloriousness. Even though for me, the most fun part of the Appalachian Trail, just to have a good time, is between North Carolina and the end of Virginia. The most fun, the most water, the most everything, in my opinion, is in that region. But the views and just how epic it is up there is something to kind of push towards. And so I think that's how it's kind of ended up that way. I'd guess like 90 to 95% of through hikers go from
I think
from
it's
Georgia.
90.
Yeah,
I think 12% are
something like that.
Attempting south.
So like 89% of all hikers doing a through hike start in the south.
Okay.
Yeah.
The stats may be old.
Yeah, the numbers.
That was at one time. That was
people. Yeah.
So, goals for the future? Plans to get back out on the trail, or do you think you'll write any more books?
You want to take that?
Yeah. We are potentially about to embark on a second chapter for the lack of a better word, in this situation with this book. And so we're working on details right now. It won't be this book, but we've got some other stuff in the works that we're hopefully going to be doing. And it's going to be a pretty vast undertaking, and it's going to take 3 or 4 years, and it's going to be hopefully be cool. And we'll keep everybody posted on that. We can't talk about it at the moment, but Amber is prospecting and getting her master's in writing, and she is working on a memoir, and she's got her own personal writing stuff.
Yep.
I'm working towards becoming a guide. So I'm running a printing company for us to survive now. We had to have like a retreat here at our homestead. We have like an Airbnb that's kind of more integrated than an Airbnb, which is going to be a home base for my guiding company, where I actually will teach people long distance trekking and do the whole tourism thing, taking people on hikes, teaching them the history of the AT, the Pisgah, all these different things. And I want to teach people the technical skills to do this. And I'm going to do kind of courses here on the homestead and do stuff in our backyard where people can learn, and then also take them out. And this is kind of my long-term goal. And so these things are kind of the backbone of what that hopefully will be eventually. And so we're working towards that. It's a long-term thing. It's going to be a while, but eventually I'll be able to take on some clients to teach them this stuff if they want.
That sounds cool.
And it's nice because where you're located, you're in the, you said your favorite area to kind of go out is between North Carolina and Virginia. So you're situated in the sweet spot to get people broken in for it. So that's nice.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Camp Happy Mundo, Camp Happy World. Our homestead is called Happy Mundo. Happy's our cat, Mundo's our dog. And we have Camp Happy Mundo. It is a Airbnb that is all hiking themed and Smokey the Bear themed. It's a great place to come visit if people from out of the region want to come here and be in the heart of Madison County. It's got a creek going around it and a pond with fish in it you can swim in, and it's got waterfalls and a mountain view, but it's like a 100-year-old home. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So if anybody's interested out there, and that'll eventually will be more than just an Airbnb.
I'll put the link in the description so people can find it. And also, I know, Amber, you have a website. And Josh, you probably have a website for your business.
We've got lots of websites, actually.
We'll put them all up so everyone can find more information.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
Especially also where to buy the book.
Yep.
Anywhere books are sold, you can find it. So easy to find for sure. Locally here in Asheville area, we have REI, of course, and then Malaprops has signed copies typically.
And Bluff Mountain and Hospital.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we just officially wrap up, or is there something that maybe we didn't mention? Or
normally we have events and other speaking engagements that people can come to, backpacking clinics, but I don't think we have anything on the books right now. We're kind of going into our summer of fun. But connecting on the websites, Instagrams and whatnot.
And we'll be doing some clinics coming up here later in the year at Fjallraven and Biltmore Village, which is a trekking supply kind of company out of Sweden that are they make awesome gear, and we do some long distance, what do you call it? Clinics, that was it.
Like workshops.
And so we have some more we're actually about to start planning, so if people keep their eye out, there'll be some opportunities to come and learn about long distance trekking, all the little ins and outs and the things you'd never think about. Tips and tricks, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today. It's been so awesome.
Thank you for having us, y'all. We really so much. I love it whenever we can actually get into some of the nerd stuff behind everything, and not just kind of a,
cut and dry.
So we got into it, so I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, definitely. We do too. All right. So this podcast asks the question, what are the many ways in which we can connect with the natural world in this disconnected society, and how storytelling can help us? We invite you to journey with us as we explore nature through stories. These are the stories from the earth. And we would love to hear from you. You can email us or leave us a voicemail through Anchor. And you can tell us your stories from the earth, your story from the earth. How do you connect with nature in this disconnected society? How has this connection impacted your life? And also this month's extra podcast question, have you ever hiked the Appalachian Trail? And if so, what was your favorite thing about your experience? And you can leave your answers on Spotify. And this question will only be available through the podcast app. So you won't see it on the desktop form, or you can comment on this YouTube video, or you can send us an email. And then, of course, we're going to put all the links for Josh and Amber, so you can follow up with them. And you can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We have a YouTube channel, a Facebook group. We're on Instagram and TikTok, which is still kind of a work in progress, but we're up there. Again, we would like to invite our listeners to support us. You can go to our Patreon page and donate, and that will greatly help us out. And also you can leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. And until next time.
Cool.
Okay.
Maybe
Thank you.
We'll see y'all on the trail.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
All right.